I'm Ryan, 34, and I've spent the last decade learning that family doesn't always mean warmth or support or even respect. Sometimes, it's just the people who share your last name and think that gives them free rein to treat you however they like. I didn't always feel this way, of course. There was a time I craved their approval, hung on to every little compliment, every rare moment when they treated me like I mattered. But over the years, I learned to manage my expectations. Or at least, I thought I had. This Easter, I volunteered to host dinner. Again, not because I thought things would be different, but because my mom guilt-tripped me with her usual, "You have the nicest kitchen and dining space, Ryan. Your sister's place is too small, and you know how tired I get." It was the same song every holiday, and I always gave in. I'd spent 3 days deep cleaning the house, prepping the guest rooms, and cooking dishes I knew everyone liked. Yes, even my brother's weird lactose-free, gluten-free casserole. I didn't complain when they showed up 2 hours late. I smiled, hugged everyone, and tried to shake off the familiar heaviness in my chest that always settled in around my family. My mom arrived with her signature perfume cloud and a passive-aggressive remark about how the driveway was so steep, I thought I'd need climbing gear. My brother Matt, 2 years younger and somehow still treated like the family's crown jewel, walked in behind her, already scrolling on his phone. His wife, Amber, didn't even say hi before plopping her designer bag on the entry table and asking if the guest bathroom had real hand towels or just paper. My sister Lacey was last to arrive, wearing a floral sundress and a fake smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. We hadn't spoken much since the Christmas blow-up, but I still set out her favorite drink and a vegan option for dinner. Dinner was tense, like always. I played host, refilling water glasses, running back and forth to the kitchen, making sure everything was warm, replenishing bread baskets, and pretending not to notice the whispered conversations happening without me. Amber had a loud laugh, one of those theatrical, attention-demanding cackles, and she used it freely every time Lacey made some snide joke. Mom's eyes would flit toward me whenever something awkward came up, but she never said anything. She never had to. Her silence always spoke louder than her words. When I finally sat down, after ensuring everyone had full plates and second helpings, there was this beat of silence. I thought maybe, just maybe, someone would acknowledge the effort. That maybe my mother would soften, say thank you, or even just smile at me like I belonged at the table. But instead, she fixed me with that cold, tight-lipped stare she always reserved for when I disappointed her. And then she said it, loud and clear. "You should be used to being left out by now. It's what you're best at." I didn't move. For a second, I wondered if I'd imagined it. But Matt laughed, this low, smug chuckle, and my stomach dropped. No one looked shocked. No one said, "Hey, that was uncalled for." Not even Lacey. She just stirred her drink and looked away. I blinked. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't make a scene. I stood up, calmly, pushed in my chair, and walked back into the kitchen like I'd forgotten something. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, scrolling past texts from coworkers and reminders about deadlines. I found the thread with my lawyer, Michelle, the same one who helped me manage the transfer of the summer house last year. We'd been in talks about signing the deed over to my parents as a gift, partly for tax reasons and partly because I thought, maybe stupidly, that it would make them proud. They loved that house. It had been in the family for generations, but I was the one who'd bought it back after it was foreclosed during a rough patch. No one helped, not even a loan or a kind word. But when I'd gotten back on my feet, I did it quietly, without fanfare. I never asked for anything in return. I opened Michelle's last message about the deed transfer and typed, "Please cancel. Do not proceed with the house transfer. I'll explain later." Then I locked my phone and took a deep breath. The hum of voices from the dining room drifted in, Matt bragging about his promotion, Mom listing her health complaints like a grocery list. I didn't go back in right away. I leaned against the counter and stared out the window, watching the garden I'd planted in spring start to bloom again. It felt like a different world out there. Peaceful, quiet, unbothered. When I finally returned to the table, no one even noticed I'd been gone. The conversation had moved on to summer plans, and I heard Matt say, "Once the house is in Mom and Dad's name, we can finally fix that deck, right?" My mom nodded, beaming like it was already hers. Lacey looked up from her phone just long enough to say, "You know, it's wild how Ryan finally did something right." That was the moment. The moment I realized they didn't just take me for granted, they'd already decided I was a footnote in my own story. Someone to use and discard. And I had spent years, trying to earn scraps of approval from people who would never give it. who saw my efforts not as kindness, but as weakness, as obligation. I didn't correct them. I didn't tell them the house wasn't theirs yet. I just let them keep talking. Let them plan renovations and furniture upgrades. Let them bask in the fantasy they'd built around taking something from me without ever acknowledging what I'd done to get it. Because I had a different plan now. One that didn't involve being left out. One that would finally remind them that I wasn't someone they could overlook anymore. And as they laughed and toasted to a future that was never going to happen, I just smiled and waited. I didn't sleep that night. Not out of stress, no. It was a calm sort of wakefulness. The kind you feel when you know a storm is coming, but you've already boarded the windows and stocked the pantry. I walked through my house in the quiet, barefoot on the hardwood floors I'd refinished myself last fall. Every corner of this place held some memory, some blood, sweat, and solitude. I thought about how I'd worked 2 jobs for a year straight after the foreclosure just to save enough to buy the summer home back from the auction. How I'd sat in that cold lawyer's office, signing papers with hands that still shook from overwork. Not a single one of them showed up to help. But the second the landscaping looked good enough for Instagram, they started calling it ours. For months, my mom had been saying things like, "When you sign that house over, we'll finally feel like the family's back together." She'd needle me about it during phone calls and guilt me in front of the others at dinner. "It's your duty," she'd say. "You're the oldest." And when I agreed, reluctantly, to begin the paperwork with my lawyer, you'd have thought I'd handed them the deed in a gift-wrapped box. They were already treating it like a foregone conclusion. But not anymore. The next morning, I got a message from Michelle, confirmed. "The deed remains in your name. No transfer will occur. Happy to discuss details whenever you're ready." I stared at the text for a long moment before replying simply, "Perfect. Thank you." I added a lock screen note to remind myself to change the access code to the summer house gate. And then, because I'm not above a little flare, I scheduled a maintenance crew to go up there that weekend. Not to work on the deck, but to install a brand new security system and a digital lock. One I controlled remotely. One they didn't know existed yet. I didn't tell anyone. I let them carry on with their group chat, when I wasn't included in, of course, where they exchanged furniture ideas, Pinterest boards, and mom's wish list for the house that wasn't even theirs. Matt suggested turning the back bedroom into a man cave for football weekends. Lacey wanted a reading nook. Amber said we could rent it out on Airbnb when no one was using it. The "we" in that sentence almost made me laugh out loud. I stayed quiet. I watched. I waited. 2 weeks later, I got the invitation. A glittery, overly designed event titled Family Summer Kickoff Weekend. Hosted, apparently, at my house. I read through it like it was some kind of parody. Poolside brunch, grill night, family trivia games, and our big "thank you, Ryan" toast. As if they'd planned an entire event around a man they hadn't even bothered to include in the organizing. The RSVP button was already filled in with "attending, Ryan." I almost didn't go. Part of me just wanted to change the locks and leave them to figure it out on the porch. But something in me, something deeper, wanted to see it. To witness the moment it all fell apart. Not for the drama. Not for vengeance. But for closure. Because I needed them to know. Not assume, not guess, but truly understand what it meant to cut someone out of their own life and how little they deserved to be part of mine. The day of the kickoff weekend, I didn't show up early. I waited. I knew they'd get there first. I knew they'd have a key from the old lock. Matt had copied mine a while ago, without asking. But when they got there, the new system would stop them at the gate. The one with the new keypad and camera. It was almost noon when my phone rang. Matt. I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Ignored. Then a family group chat ping, one I hadn't seen activity in for months. "Ryan, the gate isn't working. Call us. We're standing here with groceries and towels and everything." I sipped my coffee. Took a screenshot. Saved it to a folder labeled Receipts. Then came Amber's text. "You could have said you canceled the trip. That's just cruel." Lacey finally sent a voice message. Her tone was icy. "If this is some kind of punishment, it's really childish. We've all been planning this for weeks. It's not just your house. It's a family place." That was the final straw. I opened the group chat for the first time in over a year. And I typed, "No, it's not. It's my property. My money bought it. My signature holds the deed. Not one of you helped me reclaim it when it was lost. Not one of you paid a dime. You just waited until it was convenient to claim it as yours. That ends today. You excluded me at every turn. So here's your reminder. I don't owe you space in my life. Not even a vacation home. Enjoy the drive back." Then I turned my phone off. I don't know what they did after that. I assume they stood there, mouths open, phones in hand, looking around for someone to blame. Maybe they argued. Maybe they turned on each other. Or maybe, for once, they sat in silence and thought about how they treated the one person who had never stopped showing up for them until now. But that's not where this ends. Because the fallout from that day, well, let's just say it wasn't limited to one summer weekend. I didn't check my phone until the next morning. I wasn't in a rush, after all. What were they going to do? Yell at me? Again? Demand an apology? I'd spent years walking on eggshells around people who saw kindness as currency and used guilt like a scalpel. This time, I wasn't going to be the one chasing them for peace. I brewed my coffee, opened the window to let the breeze in, and only after I'd sat down at my kitchen table, sunlight spilling over the floor, did I scroll through the aftermath. The group chat was chaos. It had started with stunned silence. Then the text came in fast. Mom, I don't understand. You agreed. The house was supposed to be for the family. Matt, this is beyond petty. We counted on that place for summer. You don't get to pull the rug like that. Amber, we had groceries, plans, RSVPs. How do you think this makes us look? Lacey, never one to miss a dramatic opportunity, wrote, I defended you to everyone. I told them you'd come through. I said you were just busy. You embarrassed me. That one actually made me laugh out loud. Then came the pivot, the phase where they realized the nice approach wasn't going to work, and they leaned into what they really thought. Matt, it was our family home before you swooped in and bought it. You don't deserve to hold it over our heads. You think being successful gives you a free pass to punish us? Amber again, this is exactly why no one takes you seriously. You throw money around, but you've never been part of the family where it counts. And finally, the cherry on top, my mother, bless her manipulative heart, I didn't raise you to be vindictive. What would your father think? That one stung. Not because it was true, but because he wouldn't have approved. He'd been gone for 5 years, and he was the only one who had ever made me feel like I had a place in this family. The house had been his, once. He taught me how to build shelves in the old garage, how to patch drywall and fix a leaky faucet. I bought it back for him, for his memory. But the people left behind had turned it into something selfish, something transactional, like it was owed to them because they carried his name. I didn't reply, not to any of them. I deleted the group chat and blocked Amber's number, then Matt's, then Lacey's. I left my mother's unblocked, not out of kindness, but because I wanted her to sit with the silence. 3 days later, I got an email from a law office I didn't recognize. It was a notice, not a lawsuit, just a letter of concern. Apparently, Matt had tried to claim the summer house as intended inheritance and was inquiring whether it had been misrepresented during estate planning. They wanted to open a discussion about how the property had been handled after our father's passing. I forwarded the email to Michelle. Her reply was brief, nothing to worry about. The house was purchased by you, with a clean title. There is no legal basis for their claim. Let me know if you'd like to send them a formal notice to back off. I told her to wait. Let them stew. Meanwhile, I made a decision I probably should have made years ago. I pulled the financial ledgers. I tracked every payment I'd made on my parents' behalf over the last decade, mortgage help, medical bills, car insurance. I tallied up the emergency fund I'd quietly topped up when Lacey's credit card was maxed out, the rent I'd paid when Matt and Amber couldn't afford their last place for a few months. It was over $67,000. And not once had I been thanked with sincerity. Not by the people who took the money. Not by the family who said I was lucky to have it. I wasn't bitter. I was done. I took all the receipts, compiled them in a neatly formatted document, and attached them to a single email address to my mother. The subject line read, "So we're talking about entitlement now?" Inside, I wrote, "You once said I should be used to being left out. I suppose I am. But now, you'll all get used to something else, being on your own. Here's a breakdown of every expense I've covered over the years. Not because I expect repayment, but because I want you to see that I never had to be generous. I just chose to be, and you mistook that for weakness. I'll be handling my boundaries the same way I handled your bills, with absolute control. Best of luck with everything. Ryan." I had sinned. Then I called the property management company I'd hired for my rentals and added the summer house to their portfolio. It would now be listed as a high-end, short-term rental, with one condition in the fine print: no rentals approved for anyone with my last name. They'd never step foot in it again. But the story didn't stop there. Because families like mine, they don't go quietly. They didn't take it well. At first, I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd get the message. That after I cut off contact, blocked their numbers, and took away the one thing they cared about more than me, the summer house, they'd sit with that silence and learn something from it. But no, my family wasn't the type to reflect. They were the type to retaliate. It started small. A few weeks after my email, I got a call from the HOA near the summer house. Someone had filed a noise complaint. Then another, this time about unauthorized renovations. It didn't take a genius to figure out who it was. I hadn't been to the property since the gate installation, and the security system proved it. No one had entered, no work had been done, and certainly no noise had been made. It was harassment, plain and simple. I had the HOA manager flag both complaints as frivolous and logged them in my file. Then came the anonymous one-star reviews. The property wasn't even live on rental platforms yet, but somehow it already had 3 scathing reviews. Dirty, unsafe, post is rude and impossible to deal with. They'd been posted using burner accounts, and while I couldn't prove it definitively, the usernames were suspicious. I had my lawyer send a cease and desist letter to each of them. Worded professionally, of course, but with enough legal weight to make them blink. Then I waited. Sure enough, a week later, the reviews disappeared. And that's when the real storm hit. One afternoon, I got a call from Michelle, my lawyer. Her tone was calm, but clipped. She'd received a formal letter from my mother's attorney. They were contesting my father's estate. 5 years later, apparently, the new claim was that my father had made a verbal agreement to give the summer house to the family upon his death. Not in writing, not in a will, just spoken. No witnesses, no proof. It was a desperation move, a baseless, legal longshot. I told Michelle to handle it, and I meant it. I didn't even want to see the paperwork. But still, it got to me. Not because I was scared, not because I thought they'd win, but because it confirmed something I'd suspected deep down for a long time. They had never loved me for me, only for what I gave them, what I could do for them. The second I stopped being useful, I stopped being family. The hearings were short. My father's will was crystal clear. The summer house had been foreclosed and removed from the estate years before his passing. I bought it back using my own funds. The judge dismissed the claim without hesitation and even warned their attorney not to waste court resources again. Michelle sent me the official letter with the ruling, and I framed it. Hung it in the guest room, right above the bookshelf my father helped me build when I was 15. Closure. Or so I thought. A month later, I got a call from my sister, Lacey. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me, it wasn't hope, not really, more like curiosity, made me swipe answer. Her voice was low, almost timid. Ryan, I wanted to talk. Can we meet? I paused, then said, say what you have to say now. She hesitated. Look, things got out of hand. Mom's been losing it. She's telling everyone you've turned on the family, that you've gone cold since Dad passed away. She's rewriting history. And I know I haven't been great either, but I cut her off. Lacey, you told people I embarrassed you. After you all planned a party in a house you never owned. After you sat there while Mom humiliated me at dinner and didn't say a word. I didn't know she'd say that, she replied quickly. You know how she is. She just gets. No, I said. That excuse doesn't fly anymore. You know how she is, and you still chose to sit next to her. Laugh at her jokes. Benefit from it. You all did. I was your safety net, and the second I said no, suddenly I'm the villain. Silence. Then, quietly, are you really cutting us all off for good? I took a breath. I'm not cutting anyone off. I'm just done being the one you all lean on without ever offering anything back. I'm done playing host, fixer, wallet, scapegoat. I gave you more chances than you ever gave me. And when I finally stood up for myself, you turned on me like I was the problem. So no, Lacey, I'm not coming back. She didn't argue. She just sighed. Mom's going to hate that. Let her. I hung up. That was the last time I spoke to any of them. It's been 8 months since that Easter dinner. I've since converted the summer house into a full-time luxury rental. It's booked out through the year, with a wait list for the holidays. I reinvested the earnings into another property, this time out in the mountains. Quiet. Remote. Mine. My phone is quieter these days. No passive-aggressive texts. No guilt-tripping calls. No manipulative group chats asking me to fund someone's mistake. Instead, I wake up to emails from guests saying how much they loved the house, how peaceful it was, how it felt like someone poured care into every detail. I respond to each one with gratitude. Because I did. I poured my care into that place. My history. My time. My love. And now? I finally get to enjoy it for myself. I still think about them sometimes, my mother, my brother, Lacey. I wonder if they ever sit around and ask themselves how it all got so broken. If they ever feel even a flicker of regret for the way they treated me. I doubt it. But it doesn't matter anymore. I built a life that doesn't revolve around their approval. And for the first time in my life, I feel whole. So no, this isn't a story of family reconciliation. It's not a tidy bow where we all hug it out and pretend nothing happened. This is a story about boundaries, about finally realizing your worth, about walking away, not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring about yourself more. And if they ever find this post, and I hope they do, I want them to know, you didn't lose me because I was selfish. You lost me because I finally learned not to be. And I'm never going back. My name's Aiden, I'm 26, and I've always been the quiet one in my family. Not in a shy or introverted kind of way, more like the one who doesn't cause trouble, doesn't argue, and just keeps the peace. I'm the one who listens during family dinners while everyone else talks over each other. The one who shows up on time, pays my share, remembers birthdays, and sends the thank you cards no one reads. My sister, Kelsey, is the opposite. 2 years older, loud, charming, dramatic. She could cry on cue and fake an allergy for sympathy. I always thought she was just exhausting. But she was family, and I figured that meant something. Things started unraveling last Christmas. I've been working overtime for months at my IT job, not glamorous, but decent pay, and I used a chunk of my savings to get thoughtful gifts for everyone. Nothing extravagant, just meaningful. For Dad, a sleek vintage-style watch. He used to love watches when I was a kid, always talking about them, but never splurging on himself. For Mom, a heated back massager. She always complained about her back, and I remembered her saying, "One of these days I'll treat myself." For Kelsey, a framed collection of photos from our childhood, high-res prints I scanned and restored myself, each captioned with memories in my handwriting. We had our traditional dinner, turkey and cranberry everything, followed by the gift exchange. Kelsey opened hers first. She barely looked at the photos. Just gave me a quick, "Oh, thanks," and set the frame aside like it was a paperweight. Mom unwrapped the massager and smiled, saying it looked cheap but sweet. Then came Dad. He tore off the paper, saw the watch, and said, "This is it." He turned it over in his hand like it might start doing tricks. "Your sister pays for the utilities, the groceries, your mom's salon visits. You think a trinket makes up for that?" I blinked. I honestly didn't know what to say. My sister's fork scraped her plate as she added, "It's okay, Dad. Some people just contribute in other ways." I looked at Mom. Nothing. No defense. Not even a half-hearted "thank you." Just silence. I should have spoken up right then. But instead, I smiled. Just like always. Swallowed it. Because the thing was, my sister didn't pay for the utilities. Her groceries. Or salon visits. I did. 2 years ago, after a family emergency left my parents struggling with late bills and Kelsey bouncing between jobs, I stepped in. Quietly. I set up auto payments from my account to cover everything they needed. The electricity, water, gas, the Wi-Fi. I transferred monthly grocery money directly into my mom's debit card. Kelsey's contribution was forwarding me receipts and requesting reimbursements. I never said no. I never asked for credit. I figured they knew. Or maybe I just hoped they did. So I sat there at the dinner table, listening to them praise Kelsey for holding the family together while I got scolded like a freeloading guest. My ears buzzed. Not with anger, not at first. Just disbelief. Like watching a car crash in slow motion and realizing I was the only one who saw it coming. Then came the note. Kelsey slid it across the table like she was passing a secret in high school. A folded piece of gold-trimmed stationery with Aiden written in big cursive letters. I opened it. "We've agreed it's time for you to move out." No explanation. No signature. Just that. I read it twice. Then again. Kelsey was already digging into dessert. Mom was laughing at something on her phone, and Dad was pouring himself a second glass of wine. I felt this strange stillness wash over me. Not anger. Not hurt. Something colder. Like clarity. I excused myself quietly. No one looked up. I walked to my old bedroom, which had basically become a storage space for random junk, and sat down on the edge of the bed. The mattress still creaked like it did when I was 16. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and looked at the autopay list. 8 recurring charges. 2 grocery transfers. 1 shared credit card used for emergencies, currently sitting at $3,200, almost all from my sister's transactions. I could have shut it all down in seconds. I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I waited. I spent the night in that room, thinking, remembering. Like the time I stayed home from college to help when mom slipped a disc and Kelsey couldn't get time off. Or the time dad's car died and I co-signed the lease on a new one because his credit was too low. Or the time Kelsey blew up at me for not supporting her dream to launch a skincare line and still asked me for money 2 weeks later. I'd let it slide. Over and over. Maybe that made me complicit. By morning, I had a plan. I went back to my apartment, which I rarely stayed in since I was always helping at home. I made coffee, sat on my couch, opened my laptop. Then, one by one, I did 3 things. I canceled every utility payment in my name. I froze the joint credit card. And I emailed one document to the landlord of my parents' house, a scanned letter from 2 years ago, confirming that the lease had been quietly transferred to my name when dad's credit was rejected. They'd asked me to co-sign, and I agreed. Only the landlord had ended up putting me down as primary leaseholder. I never mentioned it. I just paid the rent. But now, I wasn't going to. The next morning, I got a text from Kelsey. Why is there an eviction warning taped to the door? I didn't respond. Then another. What's going on? Then from mom, call me, please. Then one from dad, we need to talk. Urgently. Still, I said nothing. But that was only the beginning. By noon that day, my phone had 22 missed calls. 8 from mom, 11 from Kelsey, 3 from dad. They were spiraling, the kind of desperate flurry I'd grown too used to fixing. Normally, I'd be halfway into an apology by now, trying to patch things up, easing their panic. But not this time. Instead, I brewed a second cup of coffee, turned on some classical music, and let the storm unfold. It didn't take long before the messages turned from confusion to full-blown rage. Kelsey, are you insane? You can't just cancel everything. We live here. Dad, fix this now. You're being childish and vindictive. Mom, I don't know what's gotten into you, but your father is furious and we're all scared. Please. And finally, the message that pushed me over the edge. Kelsey, after everything we've done for you, you wouldn't even have a job if it wasn't for dad's connections. The least you can do is pay your part. My part. I stared at that phrase, letting it really sit with me. Because for the first time in a long time, I realized I had no idea what my part even was anymore. Apparently, it was everything. Every payment, every favor, every silent sacrifice wrapped in a tidy little bundle and handed off like a receipt they were tired of carrying. I was never thanked, never acknowledged, not even seen. And now, I was finally done. I logged back into the landlord portal, reviewed the formal lease transfer I'd initiated the night before, and finalized the cancellation of automatic payments. The eviction notice had already gone out, but I added a final note, citing non-payment and vacating of responsibility. It was over. That night, I blocked them all. I didn't make a scene. I didn't yell. I didn't post a dramatic rant online or tell the world how unfair they'd been. I just stepped out of the chaos and closed the door behind me. But things weren't quiet for long. 3 days later, I ran into my cousin Leah at a coffee shop. She hugged me tight, tighter than expected, and whispered, I don't know what's going on, but Kelsey is telling everyone you've lost your mind. I laughed. For real, this time. Because of course she was. Apparently, the family group chat, which I was no longer in, had lit up like fireworks the moment the eviction notice landed. Kelsey spun it into a story about how I'd cut off the family for attention. She said I was mentally unstable, accused me of stealing money, and told everyone I'd hacked their accounts. My uncle called to ask if I was okay. My aunt sent me a thinking of you card. A few cousins quietly reached out, confused and concerned. I told them the truth. No embellishment. No drama. Just the facts. I paid for everything. They took it for granted. They pushed me out. And I let them. Now, I was done. That would have been the end of it. A clean break, if not for what happened next. Late one night, 2 weeks after the fallout, there was a knock at my door. I didn't answer at first, but the knocking kept coming. Slow, rhythmic, relentless. Finally, I opened it. It was my dad. He looked older than I remembered. Not because of age, but because of pride. Or rather, the absence of it. He stood in the hallway, arms crossed, jaw clenched, like he'd been preparing a speech the whole way over. You made your point, he said. I leaned against the frame. Did I? He hesitated. Look, we've all been under stress. Your sister's trying to get her business off the ground. Your mother's health hasn't been great. And don't, I cut in. Don't make this about them again. I'm not here to carry everyone anymore. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he only ever saw me as the buffer, the background character, the support beam holding up a house that had no foundation. You think you're the victim? He snapped. You walked out and left us to deal with everything. No, I said quietly. I stopped letting you not deal with everything. His eyes narrowed. So what now? You just walk away from your family. I didn't walk away, I said. You kicked me out. Silence. The kind that settles in your chest and makes you realize no amount of words will fix what's already broken. Finally, he shook his head and left. That was the last time I saw him. But the real twist came the following month, when Kelsey tried to file a complaint with the landlord, claiming I'd illegally evicted them. She didn't know the full story. Or maybe she never bothered to ask. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't just the primary leaseholder. I was also the sole tenant. And the house? It wasn't just rented under my name. It was bought. 3 years ago, when the market dipped and my work bonuses piled up, I saw an opportunity. My parents were struggling, and the house was listed at a fraction of its value. So I stepped in, made an offer, signed a deed. They didn't know. They never asked. The old landlord let me take over directly, and the title stayed in my name ever since. I didn't tell them because I thought it would hurt their pride. I wanted to help quietly, thought it would bring us closer. Instead, it turned me into their servant. And now? Now they were squatting in my house. But I wasn't angry. I wasn't even planning to throw them out. Not yet. Because what came next was going to be the part they never forgot. I didn't rush it. That's the part people never understand. Revenge, real revenge, the kind that hits somewhere deeper than anger, isn't about speed. It's about precision, about timing, about silence. I gave them a full week. 7 full days of panicked calls to the landlord. Of Kelsey storming into city offices pretending to be a tenant wrongfully removed. Of my mom posting vague quotes on Facebook like, "Sometimes the ones you love the most hurt you the worst." All while I waited, patiently. The eviction process had already been triggered the moment I sent that document. But formal proceedings in our county take time, and the house was still technically occupied. I didn't want to go scorched earth, not yet. I wanted them to see the walls close in. Slowly, on the 8th day, I went back. Not to confront them, not to argue, just to drop off one envelope. I wore a hoodie, sunglasses, kept my car idling. I walked up to the porch where I used to shovel snow as a kid, where my dad used to sit with a beer and wave to neighbors. I taped the envelope to the door and left without knocking. Inside the envelope was one page. A legal notice. Not from a lawyer, but from me, the sole property owner, revoking their right to stay on the premises. I attached a highlighted copy of the deed. I kept it clean. No insults. No jabs. Just facts. By the time I got home, the group chat, which I'd muted but still occasionally checked, was on fire. "Kelsey, this is a joke, right? You bought the house." "Mom, how could you not tell us?" "Dad, if this is real, you better fix it before I do something I regret." Then Kelsey again. "You think this is going to make you look good? You look like a psychopath." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. That weekend, I got a text from our old neighbor, Mr. Harland. Sweet guy, used to bring us figs from his backyard. "Heard your folks are getting booted. About time, honestly. Hope you're okay, kid." That hit harder than I expected. It wasn't that I wanted them homeless. I didn't. Despite everything, I wasn't trying to ruin them. I just needed them to understand. To finally feel even a fraction of the weight I'd carried for years. But something about hearing it from someone else, someone who'd seen it all from the outside, made it real. And things were starting to snowball. Kelsey, who'd always had a flair for dramatics, tried to rally sympathy from extended family. Suddenly, cousins I hadn't spoken to in years were posting things like, "Family should never turn on family," and "No amount of money justifies cruelty." Except, no one was asking me why it happened. They were just reacting, performing, like Kelsey had taught them to. But then something strange happened. People started messaging me, quietly, in DMs, in emails, even LinkedIn. "Aunt Marcy, I had no idea you were the one paying for everything. I'm so sorry. My cousin Jenna. Honestly, you should have cut them off way sooner." We all knew Kelsey was mooching. Even my old high school friend Matt, who used to come over for study sessions, wrote, "Your dad always gave me weird vibes. He once told me you'd never make it through college. Guess you proved him wrong." And I did. I made it through college. I paid their bills. I worked weekends. I sacrificed vacations. I co-signed loans I didn't benefit from. I drove my sister to job interviews when she didn't feel like taking the bus. I covered late fees, medical bills, pet food, gas, every little thing. And in return, they gave me a note, a folded piece of paper telling me I should move out of my own childhood home. I wasn't looking for applause, but I also wasn't looking to stay silent anymore. So I made a choice. The next morning, I posted a single message to the group chat. Just text. No emotion. No drama. Deed attached. I bought the house in 2021. You've all been living here rent-free ever since. The utilities, groceries, and card you've been using were all tied to my bank. I said nothing. I let it go. You repaid me with a sneer and an eviction note. Now the roles are reversed. You have 14 days. Then I attached the scanned deed and logged off. I expected more rage, more backlash, maybe even a surprise visit. What I got instead was silence. Not complete silence. Kelsey kept trying to bait me through text, but that cold, eerie kind of silence that comes when someone realizes they have no power left. When they know the bluff has been called, and the hand they're holding is nothing but air. A few days later, I drove by the house. There were boxes on the porch, a truck in the driveway, my father sitting on the steps, staring at his hands like they held all the answers he'd never asked for. I didn't stop. I didn't wave. I just watched, for a moment, from a distance. And then I drove on. But the story wasn't over yet. Because while they were packing up, I was preparing something else. Something they never expected. Something final. I didn't want revenge for the sake of cruelty. That's not who I am. But I needed closure. Not just for me, for everything I'd given, everything I'd let slide, everything I was finally ready to walk away from. The house wasn't just a building. It was a symbol, a monument to years of silence, swallowed resentment, and invisible labor. And now it was mine, truly and legally. But I didn't want to live in it. I didn't want to renovate it. I didn't even want to rent it out. I wanted to be done with it. So I listed it. That final step felt surreal. Uploading the photos, writing the description. I debated whether to mention the fireplace I'd once decorated for Christmas or the back patio I'd helped my dad build as a teenager. In the end, I kept it simple, clean, detached. Within days, offers started pouring in. It was a seller's market, and the location made the house desirable, even with its outdated kitchen and peeling porch paint. I accepted a full-price cash offer from a young couple, two teachers expecting their first child, looking for a place to start fresh. That meant a quick close. No delays. No extra inspections. No fuss. I signed the papers at a local notary. The check cleared 72 hours later. That was the last thread tying me to them. And they didn't even know it had sold until I sent one final envelope. Inside, a copy of the closing documents. A simple cover letter that read, "You are no longer being evicted. The new owners have requested that you vacate the premises immediately. Any remaining items left on the property after this Friday will be considered abandoned and disposed of." This is not a negotiation. I didn't include a return address. I didn't need to. The day they were set to leave, I showed up early, not to gloat or watch, but to do one last walkthrough for the new owners. The place was a mess. Trash bags everywhere. Furniture half disassembled and left behind. A few empty frames still clinging to the walls like ghosts. In what used to be my room, someone, probably Kelsey, had scrawled on the wall in red marker, "You'll regret this." I stared at it for a long time. Then I opened the window, let the cold air in, and whispered, "I already don't." I met the new owners in the driveway, handed over the keys, and wished them well. They were smiling, grateful, excited. I watched as they walked inside, arm in arm, ready to make their memories. As I drove away, I didn't look in the rearview mirror. Not once. A few weeks later, I got a message I wasn't expecting. It was from my mom. Not a call. Not even a text. Just an email. "Aiden, I know we've made mistakes. I know I've made mistakes. I should have said thank you more. I should have defended you when you were being belittled. I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was just keeping you small. We're staying with your aunt right now. It's tight. Kelsey won't talk to me. Your father barely says a word. I don't know if this family can be fixed, but if you ever want to talk, I'm here. Love, Mom." I read it twice, then again, and then I closed it without replying. It wasn't that I didn't appreciate the effort. I did. It just came too late. Years too late. But the strange thing was, I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt free. With the house sold, the accounts cleaned up, and my silence finally broken, I began building something new. Not out of spite, not out of bitterness, but out of peace. I moved into a new apartment across town, nothing flashy, but mine. Paid for with the sale of the house and the savings I'd been too busy spending on other people. I got a cat. Learned to cook something besides ramen and eggs. Started therapy. Picked up a hobby or two. Joined a local trivia team. Little things. Quiet things. Things that were just for me. And for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't anyone's safety net. One afternoon, a few months after everything had settled, I ran into Kelsey at the grocery store. She looked tired. Her once perfect nails chipped, hair up in a messy knot. She was standing in the canned goods aisle, staring blankly at a dented can of black beans like it held some secret message from the universe. I nodded as I passed her. She looked up. Our eyes met for half a second. She didn't say anything. Neither did I. And that was enough. People always say blood is thicker than water, but they forget the full quote. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. It means the family you choose, the people who show up for you, who respect your boundaries, who see you as more than what you give. They matter more than those who simply share your DNA. I used to think keeping quiet was strength. That being the good son meant tolerating everything, absorbing it, bearing it. But strength is walking away when it's destroying you. Strength is saying no. And finally, after years of being the background character in my own life, I'd said it. No more. And I've never been more at peace.